Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pay It Forward Garage. Today, we are going to go over some tuning. I feel like there are 1,000 different topics on tuning I could talk about, but as I go through different tunes, things come to mind, and today I've got a good one for you. So if you've never seen Pay It Forward Garage, this is where I help you guys with something that I can do. I've helped people replace clutches in the past. I've helped people pull engines. I've helped people do tuning. I've done a lot of things in the past, and recently tuning has been one of the main things I've been helping with. So thanks for being here. Today, I am going to review tuning with a VE table versus an AFR table, and we are going to go over some of the nuances and what you need to look at if you're going to do either. So let's dive into it. So the first thing is first. We have to explain what the difference between tuning with a VE table versus the AFR table is. So if you're new to Tuner Studios, or hell, even if you're been using it for a while, when you tune with the AFR table, the ECU is incorporating your AFR signal and adjusting the VE number on its own based off of the AFR table. So I'm going to show you guys something here. Under the fuel settings, if you go to fuel calculation summary, I know that's a lot, but this is what your ECU is using to calculate the VE number. There's a lot of stuff on here. So what does that mean? That means that if you go under your general settings and you see this right here, this guy that says incorporate AFR target. What does that mean? Including the AFR target allows the VE table to be a real VE table, and the desired AFR to be specified in the AFR table. With AFR not included, the AFR table is for reference only, and VE takes full control. So let's say that you don't really know where your tune's at, and you don't want to have to go back and mess up. Well, if you don't have your AFR table set right, that's really tricky. So let's go to our fuel table. This is our VE table right here. And you can see that this table is built fairly well. What I want you to notice here is that if I had this table set to right now, let's go back into our general settings. This says don't include AFR targets. So that means wherever it's at in this map, if it's right here, it's going to average those 4 cells and use that number. That's all it's going to do. The VE table is the only thing that takes precedence. So wherever you're at in this table is what it's going to use. And that is when you have it set not to incorporate your AFR right here, like we have it right now. Don't include AFR target. Okay, so that means that if you want to change your fuel, you adjust the VE table specifically. The flip side of that, there is another table. That other table is your AFR table. So if you go to fuel settings and go to your AFR table, here is your AFR table. Now, this in the settings that we have right now is just for reference. So you can see that right now, where are we at? There it is. So right now, the AFR table is only for reference because we have our general settings set to don't include AFR. So that means that whatever our AFR table says, this is purely for reference. Okay, this is what you want it to be at. But that doesn't mean that's where it's going to be. It's going to be wherever this VE number puts it. Okay? So if you want to change that, you can, and it's purely a matter of preference. But if you want to, like, let's say you don't know what VE number it needs, right? And you want to say, I want these AFR numbers, and I want the ECU to figure out what VE number it needs based off of what AFRs I want, then all you have to do is change this setting to say, hey, include AFR target. So what that does is it says, I don't care what VE number you have in this table, I'm going to use whichever one I want to reach this target AFR. So that means that you have to set these AFRs where you want them or where they need to be based off of your application. Hopefully that makes sense. What I want to caution you on is that if you don't know where your table is, like let's say that you're fairly new to tuning, what can be frustrating is if you make a change, let's say that on this particular fuel table right here, I say I need more fuel right here, and I make that change and nothing happens. That's where data logging comes into play, right? So if you make a bunch of changes and nothing happens, and you keep making changes and making changes and nothing happens, that means that something in the ECU is telling it to not use your change. Okay, so it takes very small VE adjustments to adjust that AFR. Typically, you don't, I mean, much above 130% is quite a bit. So what you don't want to run into is an issue where you keep adjusting and adjusting and adjusting, and then you end up with numbers that are way off like this. Now, what this means is, hey, if you're commanding 220% fuel there and it's not doing anything, you probably want to check your settings, right? So in this one, you can see it says include AFR target. So what's been happening here is that it's using the AFR table and it's adjusting the VE on the fly and saying, hey, I don't care that you want 220% right here. I'm going to give it whatever it needs to reach this target AFR. And the next step of that is I'm going to show you how you can check that, right? So if you do a data log, I'm going to show you how to look through your data log and make sure that you know what your ECU is doing. So let's take a look at that. So the last piece of the puzzle is putting it together in a data log, right? So what I love to do is check my data logs and see what's going on. So right here, you can see we've opened the tune up, and right where we're at right now, these 4 cells on the VE table is 211, 211, 202, 203. So we should be somewhere in the ballpark of 200-ish for a VE number. If you go to your data log, you can see that the actual right here is 110. So what's up? Well, that's because it's using this right here to incorporate into the ECU and say, I want a different VE number. So it's just a matter of how you want to tune it, and it's really up to you. But you need to know which table to adjust under which circumstances. So hopefully this is helpful, right? So in this case, if you want to reach a target AFR, like let's say under cruising speeds, you want to be at 14.5 for gasoline, and let's say that as you creep up, you'll go through the high 14s into the 13s, into the 12s, into the 11s, and so on and so forth, right? So that's where this AFR table, you would adjust it. So right here, let's say, I think there's a little spot where it's lean. So right as it comes up on the throttle, right there, you can see that we're at 16.7. So that would mean that right here in these 4 cells, since this one is incorporating the AFR table and not the VE table, we would adjust the AFR table right here in these cells and say, hey, I want a little more fuel. You can also help that a little bit. So changing the VE number isn't going to do much, but if you change it a little bit, it'll help the ECU get where it needs to be because it's going to incorporate that. But the better thing to do is to adjust the AFRs to where you want them. So I would say, okay, so right off throttle, right off tip in, right about 1,000 RPM, I would drop this down. And I would say, okay, I want to give it a little bit more fuel so it doesn't go lean. So drop that down to 14.4, 14.3, so on. And that would give it more fuel in those areas. So hopefully that helps you guys understand a little bit about the differences between tuning with the AFR table and tuning with your VE table. Both are just fine. It's just a matter of preference and how you want to do it. So make sure if you're getting frustrated with your tune, or even if you're not getting frustrated, if you're making changes and nothing is happening, do a data log. Do yourself a favor, do a data log, check the data, and then adjust from there. All right, guys, thanks for watching another episode of Pay It Forward Garage. If you're needing help, or you know somebody needs help, or you think somebody might find this video helpful, please share it, or please let me know. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'll put my contact stuff up here for Instagram. That works best for me, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, drive fast, take chances. See you next time.